Hey everybody, it's Jackson Fulcher here, and yes, we're finally doing a Worst Films of 2021 video. I know it's been like, 2 months now since it's turned 2022, and usually when people do their lists, they do it exactly at the end of 2021, or at least early in 2022. I have never been on time for anything. If you've been watching me for a while, you know that my upload schedule is so inconsistent. It's non-existent at this point, you know. And I've had this list here, my list printed out since like mid-January because I was planning on doing it before. But then just, you know, I can't really explain it. It just kept getting pushed back. There was like a movie I would rather talk about, so I did that and then just kept pushing this back. Now it's kind of to my advantage because the movie Drive My Car, which just got nominated for a couple Academy Awards, is coming out on HBO Max on March 2nd, and I can wait to do a best list until I see that, see if it would fit in. Also, I just saw Worst Person in the World literally last night, finally, so I can add that to my list. So it's kind of worked out to my advantage, kind of. I can actually beef up my list with some movies I really wanted to see that I wouldn't have been able to put on my list if I did it early on. But I recognize this is still pretty late, and the worst of list has been done, essentially, and I haven't added to it. So sorry I can't give a reasonable explanation for why exactly it's been pushed back, just, I don't know, general feelings, pretty much. As far as, like, people maybe asking, like, why are you doing it in general? Because why would you want to make a video where you talk about the worst of films when you could be celebrating movies? And the thing is that, you know, I don't really take myself too seriously, so when I make like a worst list or talk about a worst list, it's not me going on like an epic crusade or anything like that. They're really just these lists are pretty much glorified catch-up videos because I don't have time to review everything that I see. I just don't have that function in me to like watch every single movie I ever see and just immediately set up the camera and do stuff like that. You know, it's basically these are just like, hey, some of these I've already reviewed, but some of these I have not, so maybe you want to hear me talk about it. Who cares? You know, it's just a who cares, let's just talk about some movies. These just happen to be centered on some bad ones I've seen. You know, a catch-up video. So let's just get to it as per usual. If something that you thought was bad is not on here, maybe I liked it, maybe I didn't think it was that bad to be on a list, or I haven't seen it. It's just my list. If you have a differing opinion, that's great. Leave it in the comments below. I definitely want to hear that, but please just don't try to argue like, well, this wasn't that bad, Jackson, or like, why was this lower than this, higher than... It's like, it doesn't matter, dude. Let's just talk about these. You know, we can talk about them without having to compare like, well, mine is lower on my list and I think mine is better than yours. Like, who cares? Let's talk about some dishonorable mentions. We've got a lot here that could have made it on the list. Some I thought for sure would have, but because I see a lot of movies, they kind of got pushed back. So there might be some of my dishonorable mentions that you might be surprised are not on the list. This is why, because I watch a lot more than I care to talk about. Some that some people don't talk about at all. So let's do this. Venom, Let There Be Carnage. I know this movie kind of has a fan base. This series is kind of have a fan base, and that's great. I just cannot be one of those people. Breaking News in Yuba County, Separation, Sing 2, Home Sweet Home Alone, Clifford the Big Red Dog, Dear Evan Hansen, a movie that I actually went into wanting to like, thinking maybe they got this material right because from the trailers it could go either way. Unfortunately, they went with the emotionally manipulative, hollow, just really mean-spirited, cynical route, so I did not care for Dear Evan Hansen. The Marksman. Liam Neeson actually has another movie that came out like a week or two ago, similar to The Marksman. Not like same story, but just like, you know, it's a Liam Neeson low-budget action thriller. And that one's also terrible. We'll talk about that at some point. The Forever Purge, because at this point they might as well be going on forever because they're still talking about like, well, we can make more. We can make another Purge. So this franchise might as well be going on forever. False Positive, a really bad remake of Rosemary's Baby, straight to Hulu, so at least it's free if you have Hulu. Thunder Force, Cinderella, which might be the winner of the Oscars fan movie cheer moment, whatever the fuck category it's currently sweeping in or expected to sweep in. Shadow in the Cloud, Bad Candy, Cry Macho, Karen, and Infinite. So those are my dishonorable mentions that I have for you today. Let's get into the actual top 10. Chaos Walking is a movie that could probably only be saved if they kept Charlie Kaufman on and just let him make a Charlie Kaufman movie out of this. I'm unfamiliar with the YA novels, but just the approach they made when it came to this movie was just not the right one. It's a very studio feeling. We want to find a new franchise. We want to have these movie stars carry this franchise kind of cynical vibe, and I just was not into it at all. This also came out at a time where people were just desperate to get any of their movies out in the theaters to see if they could get anyone back in the earlier on days of reopening theaters. So usually when movies like this would be sold off to a streamer and maybe, get more of an audience because of that, they pushed this into theaters, it flopped hilariously, and people moved on. Essentially is what happened to this movie. Kind of a bummer. I like Doug Liman, I like a lot of the talent in this, but this project was just a little too stupid and kind of boring, very flat filmmaking. I was sold on watching this movie because it looked like it could be a funny bad one. As soon as I saw those CG, poorly rendered animals attacking this family, I was like, oh boy, this could be fun. And instead, yeah, it was kind of fun when they would pop up, those animals, but not enough. They have a really poorly defined family drama at the heart of this movie with some pretty weak performances. And I just did not really care for it because of that, because that's so much of this movie is that. The animals, obviously, they do play a part of it, but then eventually they take a back seat to the real villains, which is like this group of poachers, and it's like, okay, I guess this is the movie that we're getting. I did not really find it, very entertaining as far as like a so bad it's good way. I didn't find it hilarious intentionally or, unintentionally. It's just a really boring kind of thriller movie. House on the Bayou is one of those Blumhouse movies that does not go to theaters. It doesn't even get wrapped up into the dark specials or straight to Amazon Prime, which is what they're kind of doing now. This is one of those movies that went straight to TV, straight to Epix, which is like, okay, I guess, hey, Saint Maud went to Epix, and that's a, fantastic movie, so why can't Blumhouse also release a fantastic movie to Epix? Because this movie's trash. It starts off in a way that's kind of interesting, where I'm like, okay, let's see where this is going. They're still setting things up, but then when more characters get introduced, more bad acting and dialogue comes into play, and the real story reveals itself, and just the absurd lengths they go to as the movie continues to go and draw to a close. I was kind of astonished at how aggravatingly bad this was. It is legitimately one of those movies where you watch it and the characters are a certain way where you're just like, fuck, I don't like any of you. Please have everyone just burn in this house on the Bayou and let's end this. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Falling is the directorial debut of Viggo Mortensen. He wanted to just solely direct this movie at one point, but then he couldn't find an actor to play his character, so he was like, okay, I guess I'll do it. And what happened was a fairly boring, just kind of, by the numbers drama about a character whose dad is a racist, a sexist, homophobe, all the bad stuff that you would find in like just a normal person, but also it's the worst of like elderly people who are like, born in the wrong generation, a different generation, a generation where all of these terrible things, it wasn't, uncommon to hear it from a lot of people, but now it's like, oh, come on, Dad, oh, we're out in public, Dad, what are you doing? Dad, I'm married to my husband, why are you being a homophobe, Dad? It's a very boring movie for me. Viggo Mortensen is fine in it, but there's just, the guy playing the dad, I think, is just too over the top. Not really his fault, it's just the way he's directed and also the way the script was written. So I can't really fault him, but it's almost just there's no subtlety or nuance to anything. I just did not find anything interesting about this movie. Diary of a Wimpy Kid made me appreciate the other Diary of a Wimpy Kid movies way more than I used to. This movie is just a shortened version of the first movie, except now it's animated, but not even animated well. It looks horrible. It looks like it was originally meant to be like a straight to like Nickelodeon thing. That's like the kind of animation quality we're talking about here, but instead it's a movie. But it's not really a movie because it's 50 minutes. It's not even an hour, which led me to believe, this is just a theory, I can't prove that this happened, but it led me to believe that this was supposed to be a series beforehand, and they started to, you know, adapt their stories, make their episodes, and they were like, if we do it this way, we're gonna run out of books and start having to come up with our own material, you know, so why don't we just, you know, pace this out, do it like, you know, movie, instead of filling out a bunch of stories from the books into one season of a television series or anything like that. I feel like that's exactly what happened, because nothing about this screams a movie, but that's how it's marketed, that's how it was released. It's crazy, it's annoying, it's poorly animated, the voice actors, I feel like they'd be fine if the animation looked better, but there's just this jarring kind of feel whenever you hear a voice come out of one of these characters' mouths. It does not look good, it doesn't match. And there's plenty of voice actors, when they started voicing the characters, I was like, that just isn't how, not just how I think they would sound, I just feel like that's not true to what this character is at the very essence of it, you know, because it's not like they're reinventing the characters, they're just supposed to be exactly what you've seen them as, and you have these voice actors that just don't match. If it weren't for this movie, Diary of a Wimpy Kid would probably be my least favorite animated movie of the year. This one is just really hard to remember. It had, you know, that straight to streaming, straight to DVD kind of quality of animation. It doesn't look like too awful. I can definitely say Diary of a Wimpy Kid looked worse. But this one was just too forgettable in so many ways. It was one of those movies that also tries to be a musical, but I don't think they really utilized a lot of their talent very well. They had like some pop star come in to help with the music. You know, it's one of those movies. I don't know who it was anymore, because this movie is so forgettable, and I've literally forgotten it over the course of the year. I literally saw it at the beginning of last year, and it's just completely faded from my memory. Why am I even talking about it? Let's move on. Daniel Farren strikes again. This time he comes out with his movie that I consider his best, but that's not saying much, because there's barely anything redeemable about this one. I can definitely say, like, you know, this movie made me realize, you know, Daniel Farren's, if he wants to make his own original horror movies, you know, just make something that's totally fictionalized, focus on fictional characters. You know, it might not be great, because you still have to get over the, you know, poor direction hurdle that he always has. But there's moments in this movie where I was like, you know what, if you applied the same kind of, like, idea for a storytelling to, like, something else, we could have something kind of interesting here. But his problem is that he's always focusing on, you know, your Sharon Tates, your Nicole Brown Simpsons, your real tragedies, your real killers. And now we have it on Ted Bundy, and it's just absolutely ridiculous. There's so much bad acting, so much bad dialogue, where I'm like, you know what? I can't prove it because I wasn't there, but I bet this is not how things went down at all. There's moments where Ted Bundy starts to act like Michael Myers, just in the sense of, like, he's just, you know, walking past people and no one's stopping him. Everyone's acting like he's like this ghostly kind of killer or something like that. And it's like, what kind of movie do you think you're making? This is one that is worse than the last one, though. Aileen Wuornos was the one where I was like, okay, this is definitely worse than the Ted Bundy one. This is one where instead of doing the monster Charlize Theron story, they do a prequel of sorts, where it's like, this is how it really got started for her. Even though if you do some research, I don't remember everything, you know, for fact, but there are definitely already some arguments going like, yeah, this didn't happen, or she says it happened, but none of it lines up. You know, but it's just like, but it's a theory though. So like, what if we just made a movie out of that? But it's like, what are we doing though? Because sure, it's a theory, but it's not what happened. It's not something that actually happened. You're just making a cheapo, lame, by the numbers horror movie for the sake of doing it. And I'm just not a fan of that personally. I'm not a fan of taking these real life killers, real life tragedies, real life murders, and making fictionalized movies out of them with just the purpose of going like, well, what if this did happen? Now you're really thinking. It's like, no, I'm not. I'm thinking about how stupid this all is. Like, there's no real point to doing it. It's just like, I just want to make a cheapo horror movie. I can make the cheapo horror movies I want to make by having it be about these real things. and he's made a career off of it at this point. You know, starting with The Haunting of Sharon Tate. Now we got this. I'm sure he's got another in the pipeline ready to go because he always seems to have a movie at the ready. I'm just bummed that not only did he get Peyton List, you know, in this movie as Eileen Wuornos, but he also got Tobin Bell, Mr. Jigsaw himself. His casts are getting better somehow. I don't want to talk too much about this movie because the last time I really tried to talk in depth about it, it became my most disliked video maybe ever, and I won't say why, but you know, based off of some of the stuff I said in it, you can assume the kind of crowd it attracted and why it's so disliked, even if some of the stuff they try to claim isn't even that true. But I won't dwell on that too long. I won't talk about who's behind this movie and all that junk. All I will say about this movie is that, you know, school shootings are like a legitimate, like, tragedy, a traumatizing event that we've seen other movies fairly recently. The Fallout, Mass, kind of talk about the actual emotional implications of those events and how it damages people, you know, how people have to get through that trauma. And this movie tried to make a lame action movie out of it, basically going off of the mantra of like, you know, run, hide, fight, you gotta fight back. You know, all it takes is one kid who's trained to be a hunter, shooting deer, who's emotionally closed off, to take down these people. It just takes that one person, and you can do that. You know, it's just kind of lame, and I don't care for it. It really, like, kind of disgusted me from even, you know, attempting to like the movie. It pushed me back from it so much. I don't think they do a good job with character work, with treating any of the characters with any kind of nuance. The school shooters, they don't have any character. It's basically just, I'm doing my Joker impression, and we're gonna set up cameras and record everything because we want to be social media famous. It's like, you know, his girlfriend, who's also a school shooter, is acting like Harley Quinn. It's like, this is not, no, this is not good. This isn't like your average, like, I'm taking over an office or I'm taking over a bank kind of movie. This is like, you know, you're touching on a subject matter that is very particularly, you know, hard for people, and you're trying to make it into just this by the numbers action movie. And there's just more nuance and there's more things going on with this subject matter that you need to talk about, that you have to at least, you know, show. And they treat the subject matter with just like the absolute sloppiest care in the world. You know, students get murdered in this, and it's supposed to register to you as just any other murder, where people are just like, oh, that kind of sucks, oh boy, you know. And it just, I don't like it. I don't like how, you know, the people who disliked my video and tried to defend it legitimately were trying to defend it. They took things I said and like misunderstood what it was I was trying to get at, or just pointed out like little things that I said sort of wrong, and were just harped on that over and over again. It's like, you guys are missing the point, and it's all for the sake of defending this movie that is more harmful than actually helpful or even entertaining. So, okay, do you. I'm gonna keep doing this, trying to be a part of the good fight in stopping people making movies like this. And now we're at my number one worst of the year, which is music. This is Sia's directorial debut, aside from her music video stuff. I'm sure she's directed at least a couple of those. In this movie, she had to trick the young actress playing the main character music into actually being in it. She had no idea the character was supposed to be autistic or anything like that. Just, you know, she wanted to work with Sia. She admires Sia so much. She showed up in some of her music videos. So Sia tricked her into playing this character that she did not feel comfortable playing, but now she's under contract. She doesn't want to break this relationship with Sia. So now we have music, and it's one of the most misguided films I think I've ever seen. It's so awful and so bad. It's one of those movies where even though Sia is a musician, a pop star, the music also sucks. There's no beat or rhythm or melody where I was like, ooh, that's good, or I'm really engaged. All of it was just fairly generic. All of the music videos take place on, you know, these sets that are pretty much all white, but then they shine like LEDs on it, so it's colorful all of a sudden. And it's like, this is a good music video, right? This is a good musical number for this musical, technically. What I really love about musicals is that, you know, characters, you know, to describe emotions, you know, to advance the plot along, they'll burst out into song, and all of a sudden the stage is just the real world. You know, you'll have people walking around on a street, and then you have like dancers coming up. You can do like, you know, musicals with like fantasy sequences, but even those usually have like some effort put into like doing set design, you know, proper editing and all that. But this is just hold the camera back, we're doing a white background, everything is white, shine some LEDs, people are wearing weird costumes and making weird faces. All of these music videos are in music's head, by the way, too, so it's like, what's the point? It's just a very lazy movie, and there's just so many misguided points in it too. Like, you know, Kate Hudson got nominated for an award for this movie. I'm not sure how that happened. Leslie Odom Jr. somehow got roped into this too, doing an accent. It's like, oh boy, what are you doing, my guy? This is not working for anybody. And then they also, you know, there's points where they also, you know, point out some damaging information. Like, yeah, if an autistic person is having like a meltdown, pin them down, you know, and just kind of watch them as you pin them down as they start to struggle, even though that's been known to hurt and even, you know, kill some autistic people. But they're like, no, this is fine, do that. You know, it's weird. It's a very weird movie. Not in a good way, not weird in like a David Lynch way where it's like, whoa, this is amazing. It's weird in a, how did this get made? How did this get by anybody? Why did anyone want to be involved with this? Why did Sia want to make this? Why is this like her passion project? What is going on here? So there they are. Those are my 10 least favorite movies of the entire year. Like I said, I'm probably going to wait to do the best video until I see Drive My Car, which is coming out on HBO Max March 2nd, so we'll see how that goes. Until then, though, leave in the comments below what your list of worst movies are, and I'll take a look at them. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.